There's a moral to that story. It's very subtle. I don't know if you picked it up. But sometimes you got to do it for the story, okay? If I was really trying to get a date out of that, maybe I would have played my cards a little better. But I said what I wanted to say, and at the very worst, I had an awesome story to tell you about it. And that's what I say to everybody. Do what makes a better story for you, all right? There'll be times in life where I'm like, I shouldn't do this. But I know 250 people in Sarasota that might want to hear about it if I do. And I do it for you, okay? Yeah. Many years ago, I farted on Jessica Simpson. Now, to some of you, apparently that's a complete story. There's a lot more to it, okay? I don't just go around crop dusting celebrities. She earned it. Here's what happened. I was living in Los Angeles, and I was flying home to Cincinnati for Thanksgiving. It was a red-eye flight, left LA at 1 a.m., stopped in Texas, then that same plane continued on to Cincinnati. Now, the airport is dead this time of night. I'm not really paying attention to anybody. And I give the lady my ticket, and I start to walk down onto the plane. The jet bridge is backed up, and I noticed a girl standing directly in front of me is Jessica Simpson. Now, at that time, she was married to Nick Lachey, who is also from Cincinnati. At the time, he was always seen around town at sporting events and nightclubs. His whole family still lived there. It's Thanksgiving. I thought, that's probably where she's headed, too. So just making conversation, I go, you going to Cincinnati? And she was like, are you talking to me? No. Why would I go to Cincinnati? And in my head, I was like, well, aside from the list of reasons that I just came up with, is that a crazy question to ask anyone getting on a plane that's going to end up in Cincinnati? But I kept my cool. I was like, oh, I'm sorry, I wasn't trying to pry. I just thought maybe you're going to visit your husband or his family for the holidays. I said, I'm a stand-up comedian. I've actually met him a few times. He's always been a really cool guy. And she goes, I'm sure you've met my husband. And I was like, no, you did. I was upset, okay? Because I, nor anyone, ever deserves to be treated that way. I don't care who you are or how many times I've downloaded pictures of you and then photoshopped myself into them. That's not the point right now. And I would have been able to get over it if I was sitting anywhere else on that plane. But she's in the last row of first class, and I'm one row back in coach across the aisle. So every time I glance up, I see her in her big comfy chair, getting whatever she wants brought to her the second she asks for it. And every time I looked at her, I got mad again. And I thought about my friends back in Ohio. The whole time I lived in Hollywood, the only thing they ever asked me was, have you met anybody famous yet? Now I finally had. What was I going to say? Yeah, she's not very nice. That's a boring story. So. We land in Texas. I'm wide awake in the middle of the night, and I decide, you know what? I'm going to just get off the plane, I'm going to get some food, and then I'm going to get back on before it takes off. So I step out into the aisle. She's just waking up, and by the time she gets her stuff together, she ends up directly behind me while we're waiting for the front door to open when I felt it. And it wasn't like my stomach hurts. It was, this is God letting me get my revenge for the way that I was treated a couple hours ago. Right? And even then I was like, I shouldn't do it. You know, if it makes a sound, everybody's gonna know it was me. Plus the power of the plane had been turned off, so the air wasn't circulating anymore. So there were gonna be a lot of civilian casualties. You know what I'm saying? Some serious collateral damage. But it's all I could think to do. I knew at that moment it was gonna be that story or no story. So I throw it out there, and it's awful, okay? It was unacceptable. There were people turning around like they might be able to spot it in the air. They were just like... And I wanted to turn around to see if she was making a face, but I knew I couldn't do it without laughing. So I'm like, the door's still closed up here. I was like, keep it together. We're gonna be out of here in just a minute. The war is over. Clearly, I'm the victor. All right, so we finally get out into the terminal, and I get this feeling. It's a feeling that comedians have when they think something's funny. It doesn't count until someone who's not a comedian says, yeah, that's good. So I call my best friend back in Ohio, where it's 4:30 a.m. He's like, hello. I was like, look, man, I'm not trying to scare you. I still need to be picked up in a couple hours. I had to let somebody know that about 10 minutes ago, I farted on Jessica Simpson. And from a sound sleep, he says, that's awesome. And I was like, thank you for saying that. You know, because if he liked it at 4:30, he was gonna love it at noon. So thank you guys for coming out tonight. I appreciate you being here. Have a good night.